What's up, weirdos?
Hey, yo.
Me? Shit. I got me a little something rolled. The lights are low, and we're about to chop it up with Abigail on the Manic, Pixie, Weirdo podcast.
Okay.
A safe space for weirdos of all shapes, sizes, colors, and creeds to relax and speak their piece.
Speak that piece.
So grab your glass of wine and grass the chief as I get off the mic so the main weirdo can speak. Peace.
Peace, God.
What is up, weirdos? You're listening to the Manic, Pixie, Weirdo. I'm Abigail, your host, and this is the podcast where we talk about all the different kinds of relationships that we have in our lives. And this week, we are talking about my relationship with my favorite music genre. Yeah. So it's kind of a fun one. I wanted to do a little bit of a fun one since we've been talking about some like heavier shit. So I hope it's good. So my favorite music genre, first of all, what is my favorite music genre? I don't really have a favorite, I have to be honest. I kind of dabble in a little bit of everything. But I would say that like the vast majority of my music that I listen to consists of rock, and metal, some scream. Yeah, I've always been like a little bit of rock and roll, I guess. So I guess if I have to pick like the most consistent type of music that I like to listen to would probably be rock and roll. But I did kind of want to start a little bit from like the beginning because like my music taste has definitely like changed throughout the years. You know, when I was like a really little kid, there was a lot of like classical music because I did dance, and I did piano, and I sung, and so there was a lot of like classical music, that was involved, and that was really more for excuse me, like my studies and stuff. And yeah, so there was like that music, like the more serious music, I guess I would consider it. Cause like, I guess that's how I perceived it as like a very young child. I was like, this is the very serious music. You know, classical, Beethoven, Bach, Chopin, all of the, you know, the big ones. And then there was like fun music, like music that you got to listen to while you were doing something like fun. And that consisted of a lot of country music. And what I mean by country is like Texas country, like red dirt country. Some like CMT, you know, the country music channel. I definitely like grew up with the country music channel just like on a lot of the time, because they used to play music videos on the country music channel. I don't know if they do this anymore or not, but they used to. And so you could like basically have it on like in the background, and we would have that would be like the thing that we had on in the background when we were like cleaning or something. But we also listened to a lot of like Texas country, you know, like the big ones, George Strait. Oh my gosh, why am I blanking on Texas country right now? Well, I mean, to be honest though, the big name in Texas country is like George Strait. So he's kind of like the it boy, of country music, of Texas country music, I would say. John Michael Montgomery, see, they're coming back to me, like John Michael Montgomery, you know, and that was stuff that like we would listen to, like in the car or something. And then the other thing that we listened to a lot of was, so my dad was a really big like metal, or not metal, but like rock and roll fan and disco fan. so we listened to a lot of like disco and rock and roll from like when he grew up. And he like would have all these stories that he would tell. Like it's just like music is a very fond memory that I have like with my dad. It's like one of those things that like we share together. And yeah, that was so my dad, when I was little, he used to drive around. That we have this in the town that I grew up in, we had a loop around the city that you could drive, and we would go we would, like, when something good happens, or like when you just need a minute or whatever, we would go drive the loop just like in a circle around the city, and then like go home. And we would always like get ice cream at like the Dairy Queen or whatever, because they used to have like 25-cent cones and stuff, and so we could like afford to do that. And yeah, so it's just like I have a lot of like really good memories like attached to music and like those genres specifically. And I think that music taste really like it really did a lot for me. It allowed me to explore all of the different like possibilities as far as like music was concerned, and we weren't like, I never felt like nailed down to like one specific type of music. I do remember that I was super, so I like, as I grew up, I got like I was super late to the party as far as like pop music was concerned and stuff like that, because we just didn't like listen to that. It wasn't good music or whatever, and so I got into pop music very late. And my first, so there was like it's still there, by the way. It's called Ralph's Records. It is a little record shop in the town that I grew up in. And shout out to Ralph's for keeping it going. And they had this was back when you would like they had, I mean, they still sell like CDs and records, like vinyl and uh cassette tapes and stuff like that, so they're like, because they're still there. But yeah, this was back when you could get and they were super cheap. It was like super cheap. And I think what happened was I had gone over to like a friend's house or something, and they were listening to like pop music, and I thought it was like really catchy, and it was like different, it was there was a little bit of like rebellion in there for me. Is that listening to pop music, like, I don't know, there was just there always felt like a little bit of like, it was like my first like act of rebellion against my parents, like listening to pop culture music. And I got introduced to Britney Spears, and I think I was at a friend's house and I got introduced to Britney Spears, and then I went to Ralph's and I found a cassette tape, her Oops, I Did It Again cassette tape, and reluctantly, my parents bought it for me. But that was very much like a scandalous affair that occurred, because it was I do remember it being like a very reluctant purchase on my parents' part for a number of reasons. And I think the main one was like the way that like Britney Spears presented herself, or like the way she was presented, I guess I should say, rather, that the way that she was presented like in the media and stuff like that. And my parents were not thrilled with that musical choice, to say the least. But they, they bought it for me anyway, the cassette tape. Eventually, I ended up having um, uh, The Baby One More Time. Oops, I Did It Again. I think at one point I even got a hold of a Christina Aguilera CD. The Genie in a Bottle, obviously. And then and then that was when like boy bands were huge. And not that they're not like big now, but you get the idea. And I was I was a very big Backstreet Boy fan. I was a little bit of an NSYNC fan, but I was much more of a Backstreet Boys fan. Love it. Loved all the song. And then I don't know if anybody remembers Dream Street with Jesse McCartney and yeah, he was the one that that was the group that he started in, and then it he went like solo or whatever. And then I got into like Play. They were a Swedish group. Yeah, so I had like this like pop phase. I definitely had like a pop phase. And then I became like a teenager. And I started listening to I went back to like my roots and started listening to like a lot of rock. I got introduced to like Scream. I got introduced to like heavy metal. Because really up until that point, I had like my introduction to like rock and roll music was like, like the big ones: Def Leppard, ZZ Top, Leonard Skinner, the Twisted Sisters. That's more like hair metal. But you get the idea. And and so, but in my like teenage phase, I got into like the more modern, like rock and roll or whatever, like punk rock. I was very into punk rock. Yeah, so like Linkin Park, Weezer a little bit, Green Day a little bit. I kind of just like floated in between like a bunch of different like artists. That's kind of my thing though, is like I don't really have like a group that I really, really like. I have like songs that I really, really like. And and then from there I will kind of decide whether or not I like the band or the artist based on, like the number of songs that I like that they produce, kind of a thing. Got a very Avril Lavigne, obviously very much, very much an Avril fan. Who else was I into? Oh my goodness. Early teenage Papa Roach, got into Skillet was a really big one for me. They were Red was another really big one for me. Who else? Just there's so many. But like I said, that's kind of like my process of like I don't really like a band or an artist. I really find songs and like music that really speaks to me. And then if I like enough of your songs, like there's not really like a quota. It's not like if I like 10 of your songs, then I consider you to be a good artist. Like, no, no, no. It's not really like that. It's more just like if I find myself coming back to like multiple songs of yours, then I kind of go, well, I guess I like this one, you know? And that's kind of like just how it went. That's kind of just how I've always been. And I really went back to like my roots of like rock and roll and really dove kind of headfirst in the deep end on that one. And I think that one of the reasons why, it like really spoke to me, like all those, like the like rock, like speaks to me is just because like that's just kind of my feel. That's kind of like that I listen to music based on how I feel. I don't necessarily listen to music, like I said, because of an artist. So like if say like Avril Lavigne were to put out an album, um, and then I were to, you know, I would I would I would skip songs on the album, not because I didn't think they were good, but because I just like wasn't feeling them at that moment. Like my music taste definitely varies based on whatever I'm feeling or thinking about um at the time. And so it doesn't really I can't really like nail down. That's why it's really hard for me to like nail down like a specific genre that I would say speaks to me the most or is like my favorite kind of a thing because it's truly just like based on my mood. And so anyway, so let's just, keep going. So I never really got over like my rock phase. I've always been a very, like I said, I've always been a little bit of rock and roll. And so I never really got over it. But I do listen to like more modern, like punk rock and scream and like, um, yeah, like just rock and roll, kind of a thing. Now this was an interesting one for me because I definitely was introduced to like hip hop. But it was more in like a dance setting. So like we would have like school dances or whatever, and people would request like hip hop songs, or like dance music songs. And that was kind of how I got introduced like into that world, to like Akon and Lil Wayne, or not really Lil Wayne, but like Akon. Um, that's how I got introduced to like Eminem. Um, that's how I got it. That's just how I got introduced to like a lot of those um more like dancey or like hip hop artists, I would say. Not so much Eminem as being like a dance, but like party music, I guess, is really what I'm coming at here. And goodness. I remember that being scandalous too. Because like my parents didn't understand it. Like they just don't like they didn't understand like what the appeal was to them. It sounds like noise, and I quote, kind of a thing. And which is ironic because if you've ever listened to like rock and roll music, like that's kind of what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like it's very noisy, if that makes sense. As far as like rock and roll is concerned, it's one of those things where it's like your parents never really understand why, like, why you listen to the music that you do, because they all think it's noise. Like it's the back in my day, we didn't listen to crap like this, or whatever. And I think that's a universal experience that, people have with their parents as far as like music is concerned. I'm pretty sure we've all had like a similar discussion with our parents, about that. It all sounds like noise now. I don't even know what these kids are talking about on the radio anymore. Yeah, it's generational. Like it's universal. It's a universal experience. Um, I think. I feel like the vast majority of us have had those conversations or have been a part of those conversations um, when we were kids. So that was kind of how I got introduced to like that kind of music. And it was like fun to dance to, and it was fun, to like listen to and like hang out with your friends and like that kind of a thing. Um, and so that was really how I got introduced to that. But it wasn't until later. It wasn't until much, much later in my life. And actually, I would consider it rather recent. It was in my early 20s. I I got introduced to like hip hop, like what hip hop was, what it is, like sort of the evolution of it. kind of thing. And was actually, it wasn't until then that I really understood the appeal of hip hop. Because to me, I thought hip hop was like, like Akon or T-Pain, or like that was like my intro, that was who I associated hip hop being with. I knew of Eminem, um, but I'd never really like fully listened to any of his stuff or anything like that. He was kind of like on the fringes for me. It was like, oh yeah, Eminem, like he's a rapper kind of a thing. Um, but it wasn't ever really like, I don't know, it wasn't ever really like a part of my life until like my very early 20s. And, it, that like changed my life. Like the way that I viewed hip hop, and like I got taken through like the evolution of it. And two, this was I was in a relationship actually with a woman who like that was her thing. Like that was what she loved Lil Wayne. Like that was her thing. She loved hip hop, and she was really the one that like kind of educated me on what hip hop was and what hip hop is, the evolution of it, that sort of thing. And I found it so fascinating. Like, I didn't expect myself to be as fascinated with it as I like found out that I was. I definitely have a great appreciation for it. And once I like broke it down, I kind of had to approach it. So I kind of had the same feeling about like hip hop as I did with like screamo music, if that makes sense. I wasn't introduced to screamo until like I was a junior in high school. Um, so it's like 11th grade for anybody who wants to know, like 16, 15, 16, 17-ish. Um, like that age group. But that was kind of where I was introduced to like scream music, and that's what sounded like noise to me. I was like, I don't understand any of this. Like, I don't know what they're saying. I don't know what's happening. Like, it sounds weird. Like, I don't understand. And and I really had to like bring it into kind of this like other light, where I had to like pry my mind open and just be like, okay, we're gonna just try and listen to it, and we're gonna like break it down. So I got like copies of like the lyrics to various and sundry bands, and like Motionless in White, or um Bullet for My Valentine, A7X, also known as Avenged Sevenfold. Like those, Breaking Benjamin was another really big one for me. The Black Veil Brides, lots and lots. Not really for Scream, but just I'm just like thinking they're just like coming to me. Sorry, but as far as like Scream was concerned, yeah, I basically what I had to do was I got copies of the lyrics, and then I just like listened to the music and like tried to follow along kind of a thing. And once I got like the rhythm and I got like the music for it, and I understood like I started to really understand like the beat and where everything sort of fell and how it worked, and like the vocal style and like all of that stuff. It gave me a really big appreciation for like scream music, and I quite enjoy it now. I definitely listen to it like while I work out. But my point in saying that is that like I had a similar experience with hip hop, where it was like I don't really understand this. This doesn't really feel like something that I'm a part of. It doesn't like I can't understand what they're saying. Like I just didn't understand. I just truly just was very ignorant and just did not understand. And it wasn't until I was in that relationship with that girl, nay, woman, excuse me, and that I really, sorry, my voice is like not okay right now. I'm so sorry, you guys. Um, but anyway, that was really what I had to do like for hip hop music as well was I kind of had to break it down like that. And once once I got a hold of the lyrics, I was like blown away. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like this is fabulous. Where have I've clearly been living under a rock. What's going on?" And I don't know. It like blew my mind. Like how little I knew and how little I understood about what hip hop was and like about hip hop, and I gained a much greater appreciation for it. Especially like she was able to like show me kind of the evolution of hip hop. So like like starting with like Tupac, Biggie Smalls, like that whole thing. And then we kind of went and she was really, to her credit, she was very knowledgeable and very like helpful in my understanding. And I had like tons of questions. I was like constant, like if it had been a class, my hand might as well just been in the air the whole time. Because I just had tons of questions. And like once I really began to understand it and like break it down, I was really intrigued by it, and I gained a much greater appreciation for it. And I found art, and then I began to like sort of branch out and like find artists that I really like. Ironically enough, about this time, my dad was doing the same thing with hip hop music, and it said the man who was like, I don't understand this, like it's kids these days, like that kind of a thing. But I just thought it was really interesting that like my dad, at about the same time that like I was getting an education on hip hop music, like my dad decided that he wanted to like see what it was all about too. And so we kind of like like we lived in different places at that point, but I remember coming home and my dad was like, have you heard of Eminem? And I was like, yeah, like I have actually. He's got some good stuff, and I just never thought that like my dad would, like be a hip hop fan or whatever. But yeah, so that was kind of that. And then after that I kind of just like, continued on. That's kind of what I do though, is like when I find music that I like, I kind of just hang on to it, and like we'll just keep it, and I don't really change it up. Like I don't we're not going on shuffle here. Like I kind of just like keep it the way that it is, and I don't really like go explore like new artists or whatever, which is really, really shameful on my part. Like I should totally do that. But that's just kind of like a creatures of habit kind of a situation, That's how that works. And oddly enough, so like present day Abigail, I have found a lot of artists on social media. And that's kind of like where I'm getting my new music now from, is like social media. I prefer to like support up and coming artists, indie artists. I just, that's just kind of like who I am as a person. And that's kind of who I've decided that like I want to support as far as like bands are concerned. And artists are concerned. Like obviously I still have like my mainstream go to bands that I like, and go to concerts and stuff for like them, and that sort of thing. But that's really where I'm getting a lot of like my new music from, is like social media. Oh, I'm sorry. Hit the microphone, my bad. But yeah, we're gonna take a quick break, and then we'll be back. What is up, you guys? I wanted to talk to you a little bit about our sponsor for this episode, Newsly. It's an audio app for iOS and Android where they basically take articles from all over the world and all the trending topics that are on the web at any given moment, and it reads them to you in like a natural voice, like a human being would. It's basically the first time in the history of the internet where the entire web becomes listenable. It's really cool, you guys. They have all different kinds of articles from all different kinds of topics so that you can like stop scrolling and start listening, which I really love. You can follow all the, any topic, all the topics, whatever topic you want to talk about or listen about, from sports, science, Bitcoin, even the Kardashians, like everybody. They have all the latest articles and it reads them to you. So it's super easy. They also have podcasts, which is why I'm talking to you guys about it, because our podcast, along with podcasts from over 50 other countries, are on the app. So that's really, really cool. You can start listening there as well. You can download and use Newsly for free right now at www.newsly.me, or you can use this link in the description. And when you use the promo code P1X1EP0DCAST, that will give you a free month of premium subscription to Newsly. So go check it out, you guys. And thank you so much to Newsly for sponsoring this episode. And we're back. And we are talking about my relationship with my favorite genre of music. And as you can tell, because I'm the most indecisive person on the planet, I don't really have a favorite genre of music. I just kind of pick music based on like my mood, my vibe, like what speaks to me at that moment, kind of a thing. It's very fluid for me. I mean, I can go pretty much from, like, if you were to put my Apple iTunes like music list on shuffle, it would literally go from like Ariana Grande to classical music to Breaking Benjamin to Black Veil Brides to Journey to, like, it would just be a mess. Very chaotic. And that's just kind of like how I roll, I guess. And I can't be the only one, okay? Like, there's no way I'm the only person on planet Earth that like chooses to listen to music like that, or in that way, I guess. I would say that like my fallbacks are probably, and this is just as chaotic, rock and roll, like smooth jazz or R&B. I really, really enjoy those like three genres. They're really like my fallbacks, like kind of my safety nets, if you will, as far as music is concerned. I really, really enjoy R&B and smooth jazz a lot. And but I always fall back on my rock and roll because that's just kind of me. It's a comfort thing, I think. And I don't know what that says about me as a person, but that's just kind of how it is, That's just kind of me and how I listen to music. I also like music that's like about something. Like, I'm not a big fan of music where it's like very repetitive. So, like, for example, if the song is just like, we're in the club, dancing, and then it's just like that kind of on a loop, like that's not really my style of music. I don't really enjoy that like repetitiveness in music, and so it's just not for me. But I do enjoy like EDM, especially when I'm feeling like I want to dance or like I want to like move around or like do something. Like that's what I'll listen to. And pop kind of falls into there. Like if I want to be happy, like I'm listening to pop music kind of a situation. Or I'm listening to like jazz or R&B because I just really like the smoothness of it, and like it's just very calming and like soothing for me to listen to like those tones and like those melodies and things of that nature. But as far as, like rock and roll goes, that's what I listen to when I'm like working out or when I'm nervous about something or I'm angry or I'm afraid. Like that was a little bit redundant on my part, but sorry. I'm the welcome to the Department of Redundancy department kind of a situation. Um, but I just really enjoy those tones and those like melodies of jazz and like R&B, and it's just very soothing for me and it's very calming. Um, Now I will say that as as somebody, I don't really like to listen to a lot of country music. Um, because to me it's just like I full disclosure, I get really emotional for some reason when I listen to country music. I don't really know what that's about. But I do get very emotional when I listen to country music, and I don't I don't really have a clue. I think that it's just that it's a lot of it just like rings really sad for me. And I don't generally like to feel that way. So I try to like stay away from that as much as possible. Now it's kind of difficult to get away from because I do live in Texas and I do live in the South. So it's kind of like I'm sort of the oddball out in that way. Not to say that like I don't enjoy country music, like I do, but I just don't listen to it quite like as often as I would say like other uh, genres of music. I also have like very specific like artists and songs that I like to listen to when I listen to country music. It's usually like old country, so like words. So like Leanne Rhymes, love her, absolutely love her. Who else? Jody Mencia, um, you know, Shania Twain, um, yeah. So like those artists, I would say, are kind of like my fallbacks, on country music as far as like what I would listen to. I don't really have a lot of experience with like folk music. Well, that's not necessarily true because I did do like I've done like Irish dancing. And so I like I don't know if that's considered like folk music, but um I have like listened to it and I do quite enjoy it very much. But I'm really into like okay, so I love hip hop violin. Like I love the hip hop violin. I think it's like the coolest thing ever. I love the way that it sounds. Like my my sister played the violin, and I would have loved to play the violin, but I was doing like other things. Um, that's sort of something. Like my family was very musically inclined. We always had to do something musical. We had to do it had to be something musical, whether that was play an instrument or sing or dance. Like we had to do something in sort of like that area, where like music was present. And so like while my sister was playing violin, I was singing, and so but I couldn't really do both just because of like schedules and stuff. Like it would have been really, really hectic and chaotic, even more than it already was. But that's neither here nor there, kind of a thing. But there was a little bit of jealousy. I'm not gonna lie, a little bit of jealousy on my part that my sister was playing the violin. Um, but I was singing and I was like happy with that and doing my own thing, kind of a situation. So, you know, all good, all good, no worries. Um, but I love the violin. I love the way the violin sounds, and especially when it's like a hip hop violinist, like that music like really makes me happy. Like that's the kind of music that I could just listen to like a bunch. I really, really enjoy the hip hop violin. I really do. It's something that I like. If I were to ever play another instrument again, I would choose the violin, and I would choose to play like I would hope that I would be able to get to a point in the craft where I was able to kind of play the hip hop violin, because I just think that it's such a cool like mashup. I really love it. Um, but you know, I've always I've always also wanted to learn how to play the guitar, and oh my gosh, I've always wanted to learn how to play the drums. Like the drums are, I think they're so cool. Um, but yeah, I remember I had a physics teacher in high school one time, and he was like, the drums are basically just noise. Like according to physics, the drums are just noise. They're not actually like, it's not actual music. It's just like a beat, and it's just like noise. And I remember being very like upset about that. I remember being like, that was rude. Not cool, man, kind of a thing. But yeah, I've always wanted to learn how to play the drums too, and the guitar, and the harp. I think that would be really amazing to learn how to play the harp. Um, there's so many. I had a friend that played the flute, which was really cool. Maybe it was the piccolo. I don't remember. But yeah, very musically inclined, and I think that really helped though with like broadening my kind of my horizons on like the various and sundry forms of like music, and like being open to a lot of different forms of music and different styles. I would really love to, though, like learn the history of it. Like I'm a huge history nerd, love history, always have loved history, but um, I would just love to learn like the history of like all these different types of music, and like the evolution of them, and kind of like how we got to where we are today. I think it's super fascinating. I also really want to like understand the music industry, because it's such a cutthroat industry, and it's very, very, very hard to break into, especially now, I would say. And I have suspicions on like why that is, but I don't really have any sort of like raw hard facts or data to like back any of it up, kind of a situation. Mostly just theories of my own design, kind of a thing. But I would love to like dive into more of that, and like, figure that out. That would be really interesting. Um I I don't know what it is about music though that just really like speaks to me, because music was kind of like a it was kind of like my first that and books. So they're kind of tied for me as far as like um my introduction to like the world, and how I began to really connect with the world around me, was through music and through books. And then later, there were other things too that like really connect, that like helped me sort of like through all of those trying times, like podcasts. Podcasts um were a big thing for me for a while too. But yeah, music and books were really like the first um sort of like things that I was able to sort of experience, and really grab onto in the world that like I connected with. And I think that that's true for a lot of music, is that like that's what, you know, it connects us to each other, and it makes it's a commonality that like you can share with somebody that you've never met. And it's just a really it truly like music to me is an experience. It's not necessarily like just something that like happens. It truly is an experience for me. um and the way that it is experienced um for myself, and I would assume for other people, well, you know rightly or wrongly assume for other people that it's it's one of those things that connects us with the world and with each other and with other people. And to be perfectly honest, you know, it can be part of that like universal language that like everybody understands. Like you don't necessarily like need to be able to speak someone's language in order to understand their art, specifically like their music. And I think that that's like a really beautiful thing about music that I really, really enjoy and really, really like. Not to mention like the connections that you can make and like all that, you know, all the things. But I just find that like super endearing, I think, about music in general. And that's one of the reasons why I try to have like a pretty broad music taste. Like I said, you know, I do have my fallbacks, but sort of like my safety net genres, but I don't like to isolate myself just in those genres because I do like to experience new music and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think that's kind of interesting and cool. Like a thing, just like a little thing about music that I really enjoy. Um, but I don't know. I don't have a favorite genre. That's really the takeaway here, is that I don't have a favorite genre. I have like safety net music, but I don't really have a favorite genre. Sorry to disappoint. Um, I just really enjoy like I enjoy having variety in my life. I like having and being able to sort of like flip between different genres and different artists and different bands slash groups and things of that nature. I am finding more and more, like I said, more and more music that I like from social media. And I did not expect that, specifically from like TikTok. I have found a lot of music that I really enjoy from TikTok as far as like new music is concerned. And so I would definitely recommend like if you want to find like good new indie music or whatever, check out TikTok. Check out music TikTok and you know, see what they've got to offer, because if you're looking for something new and fresh, like you can kind of find anything that you like your heart desires, sort of a thing. And you'll be supporting indie artists, which is always good. I definitely approve of that. So keep that going. And speaking of music, before we go, and indie music specifically, I have to give a shout out to Mulu, who did the intro, My Unique Life Unleashed. He's great. You can find his stuff on Spotify. He's the one that did our intro, our beautiful, beautiful intro. I really appreciate him so much. He is really amazing. I really enjoy his music. It's kind of in that I get that like soothing feeling. It's very like it's got a little bit of like reggae almost. Like there's a little bit of like jazz. It's got some jazzy tones. Like it's just really good. I just would definitely recommend like that you like check him out. And yeah, so definitely do that. And thank you so much to Mulu for doing the intro. It is always appreciated, and I really appreciate you. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for listening. I know this is kind of like a little bit of a roundabout and all over the place, but thank you so much for listening. I really, really appreciate it. If you liked what I said, if you didn't like what I said, if you want to share your favorite genre of music and why it's important to you or anything like that, or you have a topic that you want me to cover, you can email me at manicpixieweirdo@protonmail.com. You can also reach out to me on Twitter at mpweirdo podcast or TikTok and Instagram, _main_weirdo1. Yeah. So those are all the things. And then we do have a Patreon that is, it's all set up. I'm trying really hard to like get it all together and make sure that it's like good. It is taking me a little bit of time because I am a snail and I can't do anything at a fast pace. I'm so sorry. But we do have a Patreon, so you can check that out. We do have a Buy Me a Coffee and a Ko-fi as well, if you'd like to support this podcast in that way. If you can't support this podcast in that way, totally fine, completely get it. You can always leave us a rate and review on Spotify or Apple. That's always, always, always welcome and helps the show out a lot. I really appreciate it. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening once again. And as always, be kind and stay weird. Have a good one.